to Friday, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, which is, you know, quite incredible how it happened. And all of a sudden, they asked us to do this, and we're doing it now. So you can get us on the podcast, get us on YouTube, and get us Monday through Thursday through Sunday on Sports Radio 610. So this was the light bulb moment that I had just a second ago. It is scary. Well, first of all, I know you know who I'm talking with here. Captain Dean Thomas, obviously out of the coastal bend, Ranch Pass area, but he's fishing everywhere from Florida down to the very south of Texas. Any topic you want, you can cover with any of these guys. And I'll pretty much just be handing the microphone around. Captain Caleb McCumber, Mid-Coast, East Matagorda, also has fished at the highest level, redfish tournaments. You guys have any questions about that? Championships galore. Dean and Scott have done kayaking. I call them pioneers. They wouldn't call themselves that, but I call them that because everything that we know now about kayaking, these two guys were at the start of it, and that's me saying it, so they don't have to be come across like a bragging or whatever. And Captain Scott Mull, again, also fished up and down tournament trail as well, and Port O'Connor now, but Galveston, incredible knowledge. So before we get to the questions and answers and any other topics, I did have a little bit of a bone to pick with one of the guys up here. If you had to guess, if you listen to the podcast, and you had to guess one of these three guys that I have a little bone to pick with, who would it be?
Black shirt.
Everybody's pointing at Caleb. Who would be your second choice? All right. The reality is, the bone I have to pick is with one Captain Scott Mull. Y'all can hear this all right, right? Yeah. All right, so you were right. Usually it would be Caleb. Second choice would be Dean. When I walk into the show today, and Dean and I just got back from Costa Rica and had a fantastic trip there. Caught a bunch of fish, had a good time. I caught a big old tuna. It was probably the highlight of the trip for me. It was the highlight of the trip for me. It was old school fishing, no belts, no fighting chair, little 25-foot boat. I had a ball of string. No, I didn't have a ball of string. But you know, it was a badass tuna. Biggest tuna I ever caught that son of a gun for all of what, an hour and a half? Hour and a half. Completely dead. Poured water on my head afterwards, finally got in. I walk into the show today, and Caleb goes, Scott came up and said, that really wasn't that big of tuna. That really wasn't that good of a fish. And if I could cuss right now, I'll start with Dean. What did it look like, and what did I look like afterwards?
I actually developed a whole new respect. I didn't think a man his age was able to do that. But a tuna fish, if you've ever hooked into one, it is the strongest fish that you will ever fight. I mean, it never quits fighting. It will test you. People talk about Jack Crevalle, how you catch a jack here, and you think one is enough. That is totally that's false. You can catch 5 to 10 jacks a day, and it still will not equal a jack. But what we were doing actually was more pure fishing, where we were standing up fighting these fish. It wasn't in a chair. It wasn't with a real big belt. It was a belt that had a small amount of cushion on it. But John took it as a personal challenge. He was not going to pass that rod off. He was not going to give up. And it was an epic battle, regardless of what Scott thinks. And I would love to see Scott hooked up to one of those, and then we could ridicule him for as long as we needed to.
Big quote before I pass the mic to, by the way, hold your finger on the top of the mic and you get real close, like I'm doing. That's how the professionals do it, so they can hear it better. That way your mouth doesn't get on it. This is radio stuff. You'll enjoy this? So let me just quote him again before I pass the microphone to the culprit. It really wasn't that big of a tuna.
80 pounds.
I don't think it was that big. I've been looking at the ones out of Venice.
hey, there's a booth right across from us over at ANRU, and they're standing there holding these tuna that are this tall, and the guys ain't all that big, and they don't look like they're all that tired. All I keep hearing is how bad this is. Oh my God, this tuna is so big. Oh my God. And then I see this thing that looks like it fit in a tuna can. I ain't sure what's going on.
In Scott's defense, those guys in this picture aren't even sweating. No, the tuna's like that.
But they got the big giant reels in the belt.
Listen, so John says, John is upset because they gave him a bad belt. My first one, I had to watch the belt hang on the aluminum, like you don't get one for your first one. And I don't have a second one, never, not gonna happen.
All right, questions and answers. Texas Gulf Coast tournament fishing, bay fishing, offshore, nearshore. You've got the tarpon expert here. You've got the best of the best. Don't miss this opportunity. I say it every year when we have this seminar. This is, you got them at your disposal for the next 35, 40 minutes. Any questions about anything? I have a couple things if you know here, but don't be shy. Don't be gun shy. Anything for these fellas right here. Anything right now. Yes, sir. Which bay system are you talking about? The one on... Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Before you get to your question, he was talking about our last podcast about the history of the Port of Honor and some of the stuff. All right, so that was the one we did with Scott and Caleb, I believe, for the podcast. The reason I wanted to pause for a second is starting today and tomorrow and Sunday on the morning show, on the radio show, we're hitting the same thing with every bay system. Sabine, Galveston, Port of Honor, Matagorda, Aransas Pass, Pocono. We got Wayne Davis coming in for Port Mansfield. So if you enjoyed that, you want to know the history, some of the details about your bay system, be sure to listen on Sports Radio 610. Go ahead now. We're going to put some on the podcast, but it's on the radio show starting today, tomorrow, and Sunday. We can do that. Fly fishing would be Scott. What's your fly fishing question? So you want to know the future of pole skiffs? Where you got pole skiffs everywhere? These two guys hate pole skiffs, by the way. They even call them weenie boats. But they're super effective. The bathtub with a bubble maker. I've been running pole skiffs for over 20 years now. When I first got mine, there was only 2 pole skiffs in all of Galveston. When I quit guiding Galveston, was moving to Port O'Connor, I stopped at the Buc-ee's down here, Texas City, and there was 9 pole skiffs sitting at the gas pumps that morning. So they're everywhere. I see a lot more of them going to the Middle Coast. That's kind of where it started with the pole skiffs. You know, it started over Florida, but first the ones in Texas were on that section. We got all these new builders now that are Texas-based builders. I just talked to Kevin with East King. He was one of my first pole skiffs. He was in East King, and he's wanting to get back into Texas pretty hard. And he's kind of trying to plant his Florida flag back over here. Does he have a tunnel? Oh yeah, he's got a tunnel. He knows what Texas needs. He and I have known each other for over 20 years. And we go back and forth about boats a lot. So yeah, I see more and more of them, and with good reason. We need to be able to take better care of the grass, and being able to pull off those grass flats when we take off. Kind of handy. Kevin's got one boat that he's working on right now. It's going to be 239 pounds and float 3.5 inches of water. 17. And that's, any other questions on that? Yes, sir, go ahead.
I got a question for you, John.
All right.
So I got to give a little context for my question. A while back, they had somebody on the podcast who's a marine biologist, And she did a whole episode. Do you guys remember the episode on the tarpon?
Episode on the marine
On the tarpon,
yes.
yes. So I got a question for you. A couple of podcasts ago, they did a podcast, and one of the other guys mentioned the episode, and John couldn't remember the woman's name. She did. Are you prepared to issue a public apology to Isabel? A public apology to Isabel because she put on a seminar on tarpon, and if you like tarpon, that is the best episode you can possibly
Oh yeah,
listen
you
to.
can go back and listen to all the episodes. Just go to Podbean or whatever.
No, but I wanted to say I'm looking forward to you having her back on to maybe, because I don't know anything about a tarpon, and I especially honed in on how she was talking about that ditch. That Dean was talking about that ditch and putting the transducers, and she's schooling us on how they grow up and how we need to protect them because they live so long that if something bad happens, we don't see the effects for 30 years.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, even though you ridiculed me. But that's fine. You're not the first or the last.
Her name's Isabel.
Yes, Isabel is her name. What's her last name?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Let's talk about tarpon in our rivers, and they do hang around.
And one of the cool things about our podcast is we do it every week. We talk for an hour, so you can only talk so much about redfish and speckled trout in our areas repeatedly. So we do branch out and cover a lot of broad ranges of discussion. There's pros and cons to that. I mean, I hear people, wish that we would talk more about specifically what we do. But when you're on there for an hour every week, we try to cover as many options as possible. Whenever we covered the tarpon, that specific one with the biologist, it was very interesting about the habitat, where they grow, where they're born. We learn a lot, and we share that with everybody. The cool thing about that conversation is that one ditch that is by the marina where I launch, and it has been well known for many years about these juvenile tarpon. What just happened there is that the city is doing some flood control work. And they came, and that ditch once had trees and brush that hung all over the edges that made it very natural. The city has come through there and dredged both sides to where it is barren dirt on both sides. So I'll be interested to talk to Isabella. They're still over there doing research. They're still saying it. They're still doing it. But to be such a unique place that hatched out all these baby tarpon, hopefully that they adjust to the change. I mean, it was a major dredging, and it is a barren, empty shorelines what used to be covered with brush. But the one thing about that is that's one ditch, one creek that feeds in there. There's numerous other areas up and down that same portion of the coast that has the same terrain. There are drainage ditches, there are little creeks, and those have got to have tarpon in them as well. That would love to see that research branch out and discover more of those and find some way to protect them, because it was sad to watch them clean that ditch out and wonder where the future of that goes.
I'm going to pass it on to Scott here. It's Isabel. Isabel Tiller was her name. And it's worth going back and listening to the podcast. Tarpon here, I know you have something to say about that, but the polling question and the tarpon question made me start thinking about something else. Is that the next frontier? Because we've all been red fishermen, trout fishermen, and we try to find getting away from it all. Something a little more, out where you're not among the crowds. Tarpon and polling are two of those things. For those of us that are more advanced. Not cavemen. But Isabel, what's weird, my wife and I went to school with her dad. It was a small world kind of moment. But they did a thing a while back. I put it on the group page that Arts and Wildlife and Texas A&M wanted to know where we had found baby tarpon. They had a survey that went out, and it was a lot of people got freaked out about it and said, "Oh man, they're gonna they're going to post this up and they're going to tell people where I've been seeing my baby tarpon. I talked to the people doing the research and they said, no, we just want to be able to say baby tarpon are in these places. We need to protect these places like that ditch. So that's what it was all about. So if it comes around again, I talked to them and they say they might try to do it again. They didn't get a lot of response out of it. But I mean, I've caught them in all kinds of ditches around here in Galveston. Sand pits, ditches, all these little backwaters. There's a lot of different odd places that tarpon end up when they're juveniles. Any other questions real quick? Yes, sir, right here.
So, Scott, tarpon, if you're, for example, myself, I want to go catch a big tarpon, or just any tarpon, to be honest. I've never done it. What would be your advice to get me started? Type rods, type lures, where to go? Where would you send me?
That's a good question right there. I talk about it next frontier. All right, help them out. Yeah, this could be a whole show. Rods and reels. I mean, you're going for big tarpon on the beachfront most of the time. Sometimes they're around the jetties. We got them everywhere from Grand Isle all the way south. Our tarpon comes from Mexico, and they work their way up the coast in the springtime. Usually they hit Port O'Connor usually the last week of May, first week of June. They keep working their way on up. They get further and further up. Our furthest ones have been tagged going to the Mississippi River. And in the fall they turn around and they come back. So you can do it anywhere along the coast. But typically the most known places are right straight out from Jamaica Beach. There's a triangle out there that they call the Golden Triangle for tarpon fishing. Box is the other name for it. In Port O'Connor, Matagorda, anywhere you've got a big opening going out outside St. Louis Pass, outside the jetties down there in Randall's Pass, Cedar Bayou, places that have bait fish getting swept out. You've got more bait along those areas. They tend to gather up around those spots. There's also times when I find them 5 miles off the beach. They're all over the place. They're moving fish. They're a hard target to find. Rods and reels, I'm using 8,000 to 10,000 size spinner reels. 60 to 80 pound line, 80 pound leader, get on the big ones. 60 pound leader for the average 110, 120s. Once I start seeing the 150 to 200s, I'm going to an 80 or 100 pound leader. If you go bait caster, the Tranks is a really good reel for it. Tranks 400s, they use those. As far as rods, I've been developing our own rod now. Through Sawgrass with Collins. He's supposed to be here today. I haven't seen him yet. We just got them built last year. And finally, we've been doing prototypes on them for the last 3 years. And I finally got it dialed in. There's 2 different levels of it. There's a lighter one. But what we needed was something we could throw lures and still be able to fight a 200-pound fish. That's hard to do. You know, throwing a small lure with a heavy rod and still be able to handle big fish and burn.
What's that rod?
Weight-wise, these are 7.5s.
You can throw it.
You want a longer rod so that you can have that little extra. Because the problem with tarpon, when we're out there on the beach, we're floating around. I know I'm in the area. I know I've got tarpon here. I don't know exactly where they are, so we're blind casting a little bit, and all of a sudden they pop up, and they're over there. You can't cast very far. By the time we move over there, now they're over there. You know, it's whack-a-mole. So you got to have a rod that you can really chunk a long ways, but still be able to maybe enough to fight that fish. They're the Sky Knoll Tarpon rod through Sawgrass. This is don't put my hand. I didn't want to do that. But that was him. Yeah. I know I was going to catch hell for that. But anyway, they're really good rods, very strong, and he's supposed to be here. He's going to bring me another one. I hadn't seen it. It hadn't heard of it.
As somebody that's lived this life, he's telling you where to go see tarpon. It's not hard to go see tarpon. But I would get a couple days on his boat, a couple days on James Block, somebody that you can get on with, and go actually catch the dang thing. Because if you want to know where to find them, come with me. I'll show you 5 acres. But seeing them and understanding what they're doing and are they catchable or not is a whole different story. So I would get on somebody's boat and go do it that way.
Before we get to more questions since you're here, we always get a variation of this question about the trout population, big trout, everybody wants to catch it. And he's the one I want to ask about that. We're now 5 years removed from the freeze, correct? Wasn't it 21? 5 years removed from the freeze. Give us a thumbnail sketch of big trout and the trout population.
I mean, as everybody can see on social media, down south the trout, the big trout, they're all over the place. Matagorda is usually the question. We're seeing a bounce back as it's easier to go out and catch a number of fish. I haven't seen a lot of the 7.5+ pound fish. There's some that are being pulled out, but it's not as common as it usually has been down there. But we're seeing the 4s, 5s, and 6s now. So Matagorda is making a bounce back. There's a lot of people that are really making a conscious effort to help it. So I think the next couple of years that we get back to the good stuff.
I just want to get that. Any other questions here for you guys? Yes, sir.
I have a little bit of a dilemma. I'm doing market research for a new boat, and I live in Houston. I fish Galveston, Matagorda, but predominantly I fish with Dean down in Aransas Pass. And so I'd like to get your pros and cons and your feelings on procuring a V-hole versus a cat hole, and what boat do you recommend?
And you have grandkids?
10.
10 grandkids. God bless you, first of all. But he wants the versatility of boat that he can fish, boat down on the flats, boat for grandkids.
That is the never-ending question around the coast of Texas. There are a lot of options, and there's no perfect boat that's going to do everything you want. Where I live, around Redfish Bay and the flats of South Texas, we spend our days in ultra-shallow water. We're running across flats that are 1 to 2 feet deep, and a tunnel hull flat bottom is absolutely what is going to work. But with that type of boat, you're not going to go across the bay. You're not going to slice waves. It's not going to be the most comfortable ride. You will have to choose your path carefully. To get to where you want to be, sometimes you have to take the long way to get there. I mean, you're not going to go straight across the big water, and you're not going to be slicing waves in a boat like that. But to me, what's important is what it does when I get there. I want to be able to launch in 1 foot of water. I want to be able to drift in a foot of water. And, you know, it's crystal clear sight casting on ultra shallow grass flats. Up here around Galveston, Trinity Bay, and those bays, where you're covering a lot of big open water, that you will endure some waves on windy days. Something with a V and a half tunnel in the back is going to work great for that. But there are so many choices out there on the market now. But the flat tunnel hull has been proven since the beginning of time on the shallow flats of South Texas. And I mean, if you fish it with 1 or 2 people, a boat in the 18 to 20 foot length is great. If you want to put more people on that boat, 4 to 5 people, you know, something in the 22 to 24 range, we'll fish very comfortable for all of those.
Very good.
Man, I got a deal for you.
Selling yours, huh?
There's only 1 boat you need.
You got 10 grandkids, you need a big boat, right? I got 26-foot General right there in my yard right now. I'll make you a hell of a deal on it.
Does it come with the fish? Are you including the fish with it?
Also in birdfish. It's a cat, and I ran it on the beachfront, chasing tarpon. Also run it up in 3 or 4 inches of water. And the paint's still on the next scale. I mean, that thing will run shallow and lead up heavy water. And it's big and flat, and it had a lot of people. I've fished 6 guys. So that cat thing is pretty cool. You know, with a cat, you can get up shallow. John runs a cat. Previously, I ran the Dargle cat. I can run really shallow, but I can also run off the beachfront. I can get out there in some heavy water and cut the waves. The only downside to a cat is when you are cutting the waves, you are going to get some sneezing.
had to get that little blowback from time to time when you start hitting the heavy ones. It's not a big deal, not a huge deal. It does make a little slap noise from time to time. That was, everybody keeps asking why I got away from the cat on the tarpon fishing, and that was the whole reason right there. That sneezing deal, when you're on the trolling motor, it just makes a little bit of slapping noise. And my tarpon were staying just far enough away where we couldn't cast them. I switched to a lead haul now, so that I'm a little bit quieter going out there chasing the tarpon. That's very specialized. Running the cat, I really like cats.
At what point did this become Scott sell all his stuff? Rods, boats, got anything else?
And that number again is, no. All right, any other questions on fishing, tactics, bait systems, or whatever? Yes, sir.
I don't know if you can answer this question, but I just retired. I've been kayak fishing for 20 years. Went on Facebook. There was a boat I wanted. I'm sorry, it doesn't have a bubbler, but it is a little bathtub, a little East Cape. I'm starting to explore Galveston now. Any advice? Never owned a boat in my life. I'm kind of out there just trying to stay, not get stuck.
That's a great question.
And not get on the show by, hey, listen, did you see what this guy did? So,
No, that's a great question. A lot of you boat curious, new boat, first time boat owners, getting out there for the first time.
I have people come to me all the time that are starting to learn an area. And the best advice I can give you is to stick with a small area. Do not try to absorb all of Galveston Bay at one time. Pick an area and really learn everything about it, where how you fish it on a certain wind and a certain tide one day. And then you come back to the same area with different wind and different tide and learn how to attack it then, whether you're drifting it or wading it, and then, where there's reefs and where there's drop-offs and those sandbars, and really focus on a small area until you really feel like you could go any day when you can look at the weather and you can look at the tides, and then you can go, okay, I know how I'm going to do this today. And then once you've learned that, then start branching out to new areas. A lot of people will come and they will try to, okay, I'm going to fish here one day, and then the next weekend they get a chance to go out and they're going to go to a completely different spot. And then the next weekend they go to a different spot. And they're never really tuning in to the specifics of one area. And those can be very challenging. I mean, people spend an entire life of exploring and experiencing different weather conditions at a different tide to gain that confidence to where when you're heading out the door, it's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do today. And once you learn several of those places that good, then you have a great arsenal where today you don't want to go over there because it was blown out in the past, or the wind was very difficult, or the tide was too shallow that you can't navigate that area. So learn one piece at a time and then branch out from there.
I'm curious before we get another question. How many of y'all drag your boats to different bait systems? Like different bait systems, or do you tend to go, let me ask you, do you tend to go to the same bait system every time, or do you branch out and you go all over? See, that's kind of what he's talking about. It's not, or Caleb, let me ask Caleb about that. You're dragging your boat, which I did for years, we've all done for years. But when you're doing that, you tend to think I can go anywhere. What he's talking about is 80% of the time you should go to one place, 75%, whatever it is.
First things first, the point of a skiff is to try to get it stuck. It's no big deal to get it unstuck. Yeah. I'm trying to put together what being asked here, and the thing of it is, like Dean's talking about, learning one area very well. You learn how your boat performs in the certain spots of that area. How does it do on shallow sand and everything, so that when you do go to different areas, then you can, A, you recognize what the water looks like, B, you know if it's okay for your boat or not, right? That's the question. Yeah, so you can learn everything you want to know about your boat in one spot and then take it anywhere else you want and know whether it'll be okay or not. And in your case, if you get stuck, the push is really easy, and oyster sounds worse than it really is.
but any other questions on tactics or anything else from anywhere here? All right. All right, let me ask Scott then. Similar but different question. You get to the, like I fished, as you know, Sabine, I kept the travel trailer. And I kept it in Sabine for almost 5 years, and I wanted to learn everything I could about that bay. So I can go to Sabine today, it stacks up. I can go to Sabine today and kind of know whatever the conditions are where I should fish. And then I did Trinity Bay, and then I did, well, I've done Matagorda for decades, but the fact that once you learn a bay, you become a better fisherman because you know what the conditions are doing in various parts of the bay, and that's something that you always talk about.
Over the years, I've fallen in love with different places up and down the coast. Port Mansfield, Port Isabel, all the way up to Sabine. And I got where I would fish one for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then I'd get bored with that and move on to the next one. One of the things that I wanted to hit on with this was with a small boat like that, with a skiff, learn all your ramps. There's so many people that get stuck with one ramp. You know, they say, okay, I launch out of Lewis, and that's the only place they ever launch out of. Well, now if you got a wind that's blowing hard out of the west, or whatever, you want to go across the south side of West Bay, you better know about some other launches. So bouncing around to the different launches to fish the same area that you like to fish, but they have different routes to get there as a smaller boat. It's kind of important. Like Port O'Connor, there's not a whole lot of options for that. Galveston, you've got a lot of different directions you can go, different ways you can launch and get to places. You get stuck out there in the open wind. As far as the fishing, picking out areas, picking it apart, you've been in a kayak, so you know how to pick apart an area and really stick with one small area. That's what it takes. And not get an ADD and wanting to go all over the place too quick. And that way you can figure it all out. And you get to see it in different conditions, different weather conditions, different parts of the season, and then you can move on.
All right, let's get you guys on some fish. When you leave here, it's going to be late February after this week, going into March. Before you know it's spring, we got some cold weather, but we really didn't have a horrible freeze. Another thing that we need to talk about today is spring transition. We're getting out of the cold. Water temps are already in the 60s, I believe, in a lot of areas, which is kind of warm for now. So I'll start with Caleb, and I'm going to go down the line. You got Matagorda, Port O'Connor, Galveston, and then of course down south. What we can expect in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's upper 60s and not 70s in a lot of areas. And I have people come up my booth all the time. They're like, hey, I want to book a trip for you. Trip with you. When can you go? And I've told everyone, let these big spring tides come back in. Let the fresh water fall and let the hatch start happening. Everybody is really tuned into how good the fishing is in the fall. A lot of the reasons is all of the bait that's hatching in the fall can get pulled out of the marshes. And I say hatching in the fall, so stuff's been living in the marsh and get pulled out. Well, the same thing happens in the spring, except instead of shrimp predominant, we're getting into shad, glass minnows, all that kind of stuff. When you get a small bait that is launched up, that's when you start getting the big fish that are launched up. That's when you start getting the redfish schools and the trout are coming back. The flounder are going to be coming back in. Typically, you start seeing that. I mean, I've seen it as early as late February, but you'll start seeing that in March, and it's not as apparent right whenever you get right when it starts happening. I went through it for years not knowing what I was seeing, and everybody had the light bar on their boats. And I'd be running across the bay, and you just see all these little twinkles in the water. It'd just be little twinkles. That's all you see. And I thought forever that it was light reflecting off the water, but it's not. Whenever your light bar is hitting all of that small bait, it's small enough you really can't see it, but it's flickering and popping. So when you're running down the shoreline and you've got your lights on early in the morning, for you sickos that like to do that, I haven't seen early morning bait in years. I see 10 a.m. bait. But when you're running down it and you start noticing that flickering, it's not time to turn and start fishing there right now, early March, but it's time to start taking note that there's small hatches that are happening along this area of the shoreline. Is there a marsh coming out right there? That kind of stuff. Because about April and May is whenever you start going out and wading and front of a drain, you see that little black ball with the nervous water around it. And surrounding that black ball quite often is trout or redfish. That's the smallest base I'll throw all year. I use the little bitty mirror guide. Go see Mike at Acres Anonymous. He'll tell you exactly what it is I'm throwing. But it's little bitty mirror guides, like number 6 hooks on them. And fishing around the edge of that stuff, man, fishing can get really easy in the spring if you let it be easy.
In my area along there, I'm going to be looking for each time I have the little minnows, I'm going to be looking for little baby shrimp. And if you watch the video that Caleb and I did last year on redfish, on the Angler U, I was going along the edge with my push pole. I did it in tags, I go along the edge of that grass and poke it with a paddle. I don't want to see that little bit of rain coming out of the grass. It just looks like sprinkles on the water. You can't even see the shrimp because they're so small when they're hatching out. And I just started making mental notes of what area of the marsh. I go over the whole entire marsh, and I do this everywhere while I'm out the hole looking for fish with the customers. And as it happens, now I know to go back to that area. Those redfish aren't going to eat them when they're that big. You know, when they're so small, we can't see them. I know that area has a bunch of them. So as they grow up, when they get about a half inch or so, then the redfish are going to start paying attention to them. What you're going to find in the springtime a lot on the upper coast is they're going to be mullet a lot more. Well, you can tell that on the reds back in the marsh. You're going along there, you're bowling, you're paddling, you're doing whatever you're doing in the marsh, and you hear that one big whoosh, and it sounds like a toilet flush. That's when the redfish are eating those finger mullet. To watch the finger mullet, you see them going down the shoreline, they're easing along, and they all start pushing up, and they get closer and closer and closer to the edge on that grass. Cast right behind them and just out a little bit. The redfish is hurting them. He's pushing them along there. And from the hollow flap, I didn't ever know when I was fishing, wade fishing and kayak fishing, I didn't understand it. From the hollow platform, I could see all of it happening. And you see that redfish easing along there, and he's literally herding those bait fish up against that shoreline. And as he does that, once he gets them pushed up there, he's going to take a shot at some point. If you throw your lure right there in between the mullet and the redfish, spooks the mullet for one thing, and kind of freaks that out and gets everything going, and the redfish react to it. If you get there and they've already done the whoosh is what got your attention, the mullet flush, I used to cast on either side of that up against the grass. I thought, okay, that redfish is right there. From the whole platform, I learned later on that they eat like that and then they move off the bank about 5 or 6 or 10 feet. And they sit there for a second. And I guess that all I figure is they're trying to get that mullet turned around or get it swallowed good or whatever. But then they'll go back to pushing the mullet again. So it's a good way to do it is blowing soft plastic. Keep it out away from the bank after they've done that push. You can sometimes get them to eat. Most of the time you got to wait a little bit until they start pushing the mullet again. What was your question? I answered his question. He was putting his hand up and I answered his question before he asked the question.
It's not always easy to interrupt Scott when we only have one microphone, which is one of my favorite things to do. But one of the interesting things about the conversations that we have on the podcast is the way we compare what is happening in Galveston, what is happening in Matagorda, and what is happening in my neighborhood. The places that they spoke of in the last two there were about marshes, shrimp hatches, and those type of things that really relate to the shoreline. As we shift into the spring down south where I'm at, it's all about the schools of mullet that are on the flats. We're fishing wide open areas, long, expansive drifts that cover a lot of area across miles and miles of seagrass beds. And what happens in my neighborhood is whenever the finger mullet, and it's also little pin perch, little tiny fish that start to hatch in those grass, along with a lot of little crabs, whenever you see the big rafts of mullet that start to invade the flats, that is when there were the redfish and the speckled trout would be right there with them. And during the springtime, we have reds and trout that are intermingled. When you're casting across those flats, you have a 50-50 chance at the trout or the red. As we get past spring into summer, the trout are going to go be in deeper water. They're going to be on the drop-offs. They're going to be on the edges of the flats. But those reds will stay in the shallowest part through the heat of summer. But the big thing that triggers the change in our fishing season is when those big rafts of mullet, when you start seeing them across the flats. And there will be some shrimp and those things mixed in, but the most prevalent one, what we're looking for, is big schools of mullet. The water temperature, Scott and I were just looking at, its water temperature now is like 73 degrees already. This winter did not get that cold. Water temperature stayed in the 60s through the entire winter. But despite the water temperature not changing, those mullets still migrate. They still leave the flats. Those bait fish are not there during the cooler months. Whenever it's like an eruption of life. Whenever the bait fish start hopping and there's slicks that are showing up in the morning, you know it's time to spend more time there. And then we're coming off these ultra low tides. We're just getting back to where there's a great water level across the grass beds where you can spend more time there searching now.
And if you like a good deal on the push pole that actually stirred up some shrimp, I'm sure Scott will make a good deal for you on that push pole that he'll say that too. All right, we got like 2 or 3 minutes. Any quick questions about anything to show it or anything? Yes, sir.
So, Scott, you mentioned on the podcast several years, maybe a year or so ago, about flounder regulations, how they, during the November through December, they shut it down. You said then that it was probably going to be about 7 years before they'd ever open that back up. Have you heard anything more about that?
Flounder population and regulation.
Well, the more research they do on the flounder, they're starting to find out that they're more, their breeding is about temperature, water temperatures, and water temperatures have to get really cold in order for them to have very successful breeding. You haven't had real cold water. So I don't know where they're at on it. I haven't come up with what the population actually is. I just do it anecdotally, and I know that I don't see that many flounders on the whole platform. I mean, the ones that I see are little. I don't see a whole lot of really good sizes. When I was in Galveston and they first done all that regulation, almost immediately, within the first 2 or 3 years, I started seeing a lot more flounder, a lot bigger flounder. Galveston doesn't have near the gigging boats that we have in Port O'Connor. If you go out there tonight in Port O'Connor and sit on the bank and look, it looks like a parking lot out there. There's lights everywhere. So we get a lot more pressure on us, so that's probably why I don't see there's many there. I'd be interested to see what the Galveston population is looking like. But the biggest detriment for us on raising the flounder population is that temperature. They have to have that certain temperature. It's a very fine line. It can be too cold and it can be too warm. And I don't remember the exacts on it, but it was interesting to read about.
All right, anything else here? Want to remind you, the Bite Me Fishing Show now, Thursday through Sunday, on Sports Radio 610, 2 hours every morning. Bite Me podcast you get wherever you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, wherever. And I say this on the show all the time. These guys are truly, truly, truly great at what they do. They have the entire coast. Now they got Florida and Louisiana covered. They've all spent a lot of time down there. So appreciate you guys joining us. Any parting thoughts here?
You always got to go last, so you can be a smart aleck. A lot of our good sponsors are here. He said parting shots. A whole lot of our good sponsors are here. Mark Nichols sitting back there trying to be quiet. He's kind of ducking down. We got Anglers Anonymous here. We got Fish Tackle Limited is over here. Just a whole lot of really good. I'm missing somebody somewhere. Our late night guys are over there. Come see their booths, talk to them. They're the ones that support our show, keep us on the air, keep us going.
And I just want to say thanks to everybody who takes time to tune in and listen to us. I really look forward to the Tuesday. And if you get a chance on Tuesday afternoon at 3:30, you can watch us live, where it's recorded live. And you can comment, you can kind of play along with the show. There's live comments that stream as we're recording, and it generates some conversation, which does create a more entertaining show. We get live, current, up-to-date topics that tune in while we're sitting there that adds to the conversation. But most importantly, thanks to everybody who tunes in, thanks to everybody who comes out and fishes with us, and looking forward to another great year with everybody.
All right, Scott gets to tell us hey, if y'all want to talk and ask questions, we're gonna be up at the booth. Probably hung there for 45 minutes or so. I know they got to get back to their sponsors. But we're gonna go up to the booth. You're all welcome to come by and ask any questions, whatever we can cover here. I do have some stuff going on at the booth. I have a cheaper annual subscription for you guys to the show, and I have a free month of a trial for the show. And you've been here forever with that pencil making me nervous. Are you a member of AWU? Come by the booth. I got something special for you.
And if you would subscribe, because we're good partners with AWU, because I want to help them and we want to help each other every way we can, you get some Buy Me stickers for your boat or your cooler or whatever if you subscribe there. So appreciate you guys very much, and we'll do it again.
All right, let me turn the microphone around. All right, so I couldn't interrupt the I couldn't interrupt the podcast while it was going on, the seminar while it was going on, but there they are. There's This is the Angler U man right here. If you want Angler U,
that's it.
This is the man. Go see him at the booth.
I'm the dean of Angler U.
He's the dean of Angler U.
Oh, that's Dean. He's at Angler U.
How are you going to send yourself to the principal's office, though? If he's the dean, how's he going to send himself to the principal's office? So anyways, guys, let me just show you the setup back here. So this was a stage they were talking on. We're here at the Houston Fishing Show, so let's just pause for a station identification. This is CaptCalebTV. We're at the Houston Fishing Show, and we just heard Bite Me podcast. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and I love them. We just heard their little spiel, their seminar that they put on. They edit what we just heard. They edit that into a podcast, by the way. So you're gonna see what they were talking about on their next. Well, maybe not on their next one, but it'll be coming out. I'm pretty sure.